In the previous video, I showed you how to add features and forms to the various syntactic categories in the lexicon. And in this video, I'd like to show you how to do the exact same thing, but this time we're going to add them manually. So here we are in the nouns. There are no stems. If we go to features, then we see the 4 features for nouns. And first I want to delete these. And the way you delete a feature, you click on the column header, and then you push the delete key on your keyboard. And you're asked, do you want to delete this feature? We'll say yes. So let's delete all of these. I click on it, push the delete key, yes. Click on it, delete key. So now there aren't any features. If we go to forms, there's 1 form. And if we look at form rules, there's 1 form and 3 form rules. If we click on the header and push the delete key on our keyboard, we're asked if we want to delete it. We'll say yes. And now, before you can enter any form rules, you must first add at least 1 new form for the syntactic category. So all the features and forms have been deleted. Let's do this for verbs. Okay, we'll delete the forms for the verbs. And we'll delete the features. Okay, there are no features for verbs. We don't need to do this for the adjectives and adverbs. Let's go back to the nouns. And now we're going to add those features and forms manually. So we're in features. We can say new feature. We'll say gender. And we always put the most common value first. So in English, most nouns are neuter. If it's a pronoun, it'll be it. Okay, and it's good to add a note. As I mentioned in that previous series of videos, the way we toggle back and forth between the system font and the target font in these edit controls is by pushing the Alt key on the keyboard. Okay, so there's our first feature for nouns. And if we rest our cursor up there, we can see the comment. Let's say new feature. Another one was common proper. Most nouns are common. And it's always good to add a comment. Okay. Another one was count nouns and mass nouns. Okay, that's enough of that. We don't need to add that one for relativizer. I'm sure you get the idea. So now we have these features. We can edit them in the usual way: gender, common proper, count mass. Now let's add some forms. For nouns, we only have 1 form, so we'll say new form. And we don't need a comment here. For the forms, now we need some form rules, so we'll click on form rules. Here's 1 form that corresponds to here. To add a new rule to this form, we'll say So this will be a simple spell-out rule because it adds one affix. This will be a suffix. The base form is the stem. This tells the rule which form should it begin with before it actually makes the modification. We'll call this plural, and we'll say book, books, dogs, etc. Okay. You haven't specified any grammar topics for the rule. Would you like to do that now? It's a very good idea to specify grammar topics, but it takes a little bit of time. I'll show you. Okay, so here's a list of grammar topics. This grammar topic would be for number, noun number. You can add other grammar topics. And now down here, you can see that this rule is assigned to the number topic. This is very useful if you want to eventually export your project and you want to write a grammar sketch for the language that you're working on. The next time we see that dialog, I'm going to say no because it takes time in these videos and it's not very helpful. But in general, I would highly recommend that for every grammar rule that you always have one or more topics. You can assign multiple topics. This has nothing to do with possession, but just so you can see. So now this rule is associated with number and possession. And we'll say OK. So now, to see this, let's add a stem. New stem, let's say book, neuter, common, count. Yes. So here's the plural form. We can say show tags, and that shows the morpheme boundary with the morphemes tag. So there we have it. So now, if we go to features, it shows the features. If we go to forms, it shows the forms. For the morphophonemic rules, I'm going to double-click here. Let's write a morphophonemic rule. So this will be a morphophonemic rule. And this will apply to a suffix. And we have to specify which suffix. There's only one, plural. And the stem will change. If it ends with a Y, it'll change to an I. See, this right here represents the morpheme boundary. So we have end of stem, beginning of suffix. And this right here is the morpheme boundary. So right now, it'll end with YS. We want it to change to IES. And, okay. In that previous series, we talked about reduplication and epenthesis, specifying the stem and the morpheme with phonetic features, etc. We won't do all that now. This is sufficient for our purposes. Here, we haven't specified any grammar topics for this rule. Would you like to do that now? I'm going to say don't show this prompt again because it takes time, and in these videos I don't want to spend that time. But again, I highly recommend that you do select grammar topics for each and every grammar rule. Okay, let's check that. Let's go to a stem, new stem, family. Family is neuter, common, count, families. And if we show tags, we see that the morphophonemic rule worked. So you get the idea. We won't add that last morphophonemic rule. Let's do just a few more in the verbs. We don't need any features for English verbs, but we need four forms. So we'll say new form. Let's add another form. Okay. And we go to form rules. So now there's one of these, one form for each of these. Past tense, I'll double click. So this will be another simple rule. It'll be a suffix. We start with the stem and we'll add ed. Let's enter an example. Walk. Okay. That's sufficient for that. Third singular present. Stem plus s. So this will be another simple spell out rule. It'll be a suffix. It'll begin with the stem. And we'll say walks. The perfect participle is usually the same as the past tense. John had walked. But there are exceptions. John had eaten. So this will be what we call a form selection rule. And it asks us which form do we want to select. And we have all of the preceding forms to choose from. So the stem, past tense, third singular, and we can also select this form. But it's normally the same as the past tense. And the participle, so this will be another simple spell out rule because it adds one affix. It'll be a suffix. It begins with the stem. The suffix is ing. Oh, I didn't add a comment. Okay. To see this, let's add a stem. So we go to stems, new stem, let's say walk. So here it's executed the rules for us and showing us, making sure they're correct. Walked, walks, perfect is walked, walking. So those all look good. If we want, we can go edit the form rules here. If we need to add a morphophonemic rule or something, we don't right now. Let's say OK. To walk. And let's enter one that's suppletive. Let's say a new stem, eat. Okay, we don't say eated, we say ate. So this is suppletive. All we have to do is click on it, and we can edit it right here. Ate. Eats is fine. Perfect. In this case, it's not the same as a past tense form. It's eaten. So we can edit it right here. And eating is fine. So there we have those. If we look at the forms now, the ones that are suppletive have a white background, ate and eaten. And as soon as you enter text into these cells, what that does in the form rules, there are now suppletive. This TBTA automatically writes a suppletive rule for you. And you can look in there. Right now it has just one entry. This can have up to 99 words. And so that's what a suppletive form rule looks like. So you don't need to write those yourself. And the same thing down here. Eat, eaten. Okay? So that's enough for this video. So this is how you would enter the features and forms manually. And you'll almost certainly have to do this at some point. So it's good to keep in mind. You can do all of this in the stems view. You can enter new stems. In the features view, you can enter new features or edit features. And in the forms view, you can add new forms and edit the form rules.